grant-based aid based on the student's admissions application. Now, the rest of the financial aid, and where most financial aid comes from, is from financial need-based aid. So filling out those financial aid forms we're going to talk about, and it's standardized formulas that the colleges use, the federal government, the state uses. They collect the data, it goes into a formula, and it spits out, how much you're eligible for different types of aid. It's a lot more complicated than that, but I'll just simplify it here. So grants, the Pell Grant, for example, it's a federal grant. The subsidy on that student loan is need-based aid, and work study as well. We mentioned that. Now, students don't typically need to have a very high GPA to maintain their need-based aid. It's typically a 2.0. There are enrollment requirements, so typically if you drop below half-time status, you might lose your financial aid, so you want to be careful of that. So you have to be making satisfactory academic progress towards your degree. Okay, so a certain minimum amount of credits each semester, making progress there. And making satisfactory academic progress is also a criteria for many credit-based loans. So for the MEFA loan, for example, we have a very low-cost loan, but students need to be making, they call it SAP, S-A-P, in order to qualify. So it is important just to know, what those criteria are. Okay, any quick questions? Good, okay. All right, let's talk about how to apply and how that process works. So the financial aid timeline, I mentioned the admissions application. So you'll want to find out, okay, where is the student applying, early action, early decision, what are the deadlines for that? Go on the school's website. The way this process is going to work is that you sort of have two parallel tracks happening at the same time. You have admissions, you're working with the admissions office, you have an application and different things that you have to get in, your transcripts, letters of recommendation, test scores, things like that. So that's happening through admissions. Admissions is also going to determine if you're eligible for any merit-based aid. So you have that happening, and then you have the financial aid office filling out separate forms, maybe a separate deadline, but usually close to the admissions deadline, and they're figuring out what you're eligible for in need-based aid. And then they basically take that merit-based aid and the need-based aid, and that's your financial aid offer. Okay, so it happens two different offices, different forms, but it's happening at the same time. So the key point here is you don't want to wait until you find out if you're accepted to a school to apply for financial aid, because you're probably not going to find out for regular admissions till March, April timeframe, and by then you will have missed the school's deadlines for financial aid. So it's really important to meet those deadlines. Go on every college's website that the student's applying to. Students, you can do this research. We have a college application manager. You can see the last bullet. I don't know if you can read that from here, but even if you just put it in the search on MEFA's website, you'll find it, and that's how you can use that to track your applications. You can also create a spreadsheet, however you like to do it. But it's really important to meet those deadlines and stay on track, okay? And if you don't meet the deadline for the school, it doesn't mean that you won't necessarily qualify for federal or state aid, but you might not qualify for aid from the college, and that's where, especially at a lot of private colleges, where a lot of your financial aid is going to come from, okay? So how do you apply for this aid? First form you're going to have to fill out is the FAFSA form. Everybody needs to fill this out to apply for financial aid at any college in the country. Every college is going to require this form. This is the form you fill out also to be considered for aid from the state of Massachusetts. And it's free, so you shouldn't have to pay anybody to fill this out or get help filling it out. It's a federal form. The website right here, FAFSA.gov, becomes available Saturday. Now, the parent that's filling out the form, at least one of the parents, and the student, you're each going to need to get an FSA ID. So the website is right there. You can go on and do this tonight. It's basically a credential, a login and password that you'll use to file your FAFSA, sign it electronically. For students who are taking out that federal student loan, you'll sign a master promissory note. You're going to need the FSA ID to sign that. So student needs one to electronically sign, and one of the parents that's filling out the form also needs one to electronically sign. Now, parents, this is a lifetime ID. You don't need to get a new one every year. You can use this FSA ID, your parent FSA ID, for other students down the road that might be filing for financial aid as well, okay? Let's see here. IRS data retrieval tool. Once you get into the FAFSA, you start filling it out, there's a really handy tool that will pull the information from the IRS and pre-populate a lot of the information on the FAFSA. Makes it a lot easier to fill out, reduces errors, and it just can make your life a lot easier. So I definitely recommend using that. For students who are going to school next year, so the seniors, when you're filling out this FAFSA, the information you're going to be filling out is for 2021. Not this current year, but the prior year. So they call that prior year. So everybody should have their 21 taxes done at this point. And you do have to fill this out every year. We have a great webinar. It's recorded. It's on our website where we'll walk you through the FAFSA. If you have questions, you can call MIFA. If you sign up for those emails, I'll put that QR code on at the end so you can sign up there. Then you'll get information about FAFSA festivals that we have where you can log into a Zoom and we can put you in a private chat room with a financial aid professional that can help you filling it out live, you know, on a Saturday or evening whenever we have those events. So definitely a good idea. And if you need help, there's help available for free. Okay, so what's going to be on? Yep, sure, question? You wouldn't be able to use the IRS data retrieval tool if you don't have a social security number. You'd have to put it in manually. Yep, yep. You can still apply. It just depends on what you'd be eligible for or whoever the person is eligible for, because not all federal and state aid is given out to non-citizens. Or usually it's citizen or permanent resident. Then they, yep. In some schools, depending on the school, they may have aid for students who might not qualify for federal aid as well. Yep. Anytime after October 1st, you want to meet the deadline of the school. So look up those school deadlines. So basically, you fill out the FAFSA, you're going to be putting all the schools that the student's applying to on that FAFSA. As long as you meet the earliest deadline, you've automatically met the deadline for all the other schools that are on there because you're just filling out the one form. Okay, so you want to just make sure you can do it as early as October 1st, but you want to get it in before the school's deadline. No, senior year of high school. Yep. While they're applying for admission, it's part of the same process. Yep. Yep, good question.
No benefit to go ahead and apply on October 1st versus, I don't know, the deadline is December 20th, right? So applying early doesn't put you up,
Right.
right? No impact there.
Yeah, applying early isn't necessarily going to do anything, but except for taking the stress off you. And getting one thing checked off the box, yeah. So some of the information that's going to be on there, there's going to be student information and parent information. Non-citizens would use zeros in their SSN, and they'd have to physically sign the FAFSA and mail it in because they won't be able to electronically sign it. The colleges the student's applying to. Now, on the FAFSA form, you can list up to 10 colleges. So what if a student's applying to 12 colleges? You'll want to list the 10 colleges that have the earliest deadlines. If they're all around the same time, list the top 10 colleges. You're going to submit that application, and I'll go over that in a second, what happens after you submit it. Once you get your confirmation back, which is a couple days, then you can take some of those 10 schools off and put the new schools on and resubmit it, and then the information is shipped off electronically to the additional schools. But the first time, you can put up to 10. Yes, the first schools, yep. I'm going to talk about the confirmation you'll get. So you'll know, okay, I got this student aid report. That means they got it. We're good to go. I can take one off and send it off, yep. So parents, who is filling out the information as a parent? It's going to be parents who are married, same-sex parents, parents who might not be married but are living together. Both parents would fill that out. If it's a case of a divorced or separated family, then it will be the custodial parent that fills out the FAFSA form with their current spouse if they're remarried, okay? So let's say mom and dad divorce, mom gets remarried, it would be mom and stepdad's information on the FAFSA if the student lives with mom more than 50% of the time. So that's how you figure out who's the custodial parent. It's who they live with more than 50% of the time, and then who gives more than 50% of the financial support. And legal guardians, let's say student lives with grandma, grandpa, they're their legal guardian. They do not fill out this form. The student fills it out independently without parental information. Number of people in the household, the dependents, as well as the number of people in college, children in college, is also going to be reported on there. So I mentioned the financials you're going to be inputting or taking from the IRS is going to be for 2021, both taxed and untaxed income, as well as parent and student assets. So what is an asset? That's going to be checking accounts, savings, investment. If you have an investment property, let's say you have a vacation home, the equity in that property, you're not submitting the equity in your primary residence. You don't have to fill anything out about that. Any 529 college savings accounts, those are going to be reported in the parent asset section. And you also you're not going to be reporting retirement, life insurance, or the value of a small family business of less than 100 employees. And debt, credit card debt, car loans, even student loan debt is not recorded on this FAFSA as well. So they're not really looking at how much you have in debt. It's more, it's really a lot of it is based on your income. That's what's going to drive most of the financial aid. Now, in addition to the FAFSA, some of you may also need to fill out additional financial aid form. For a lot of the private colleges, there's about 200 nationwide, I believe. They require what's called the CSS profile. So this is through the College Board. That's a much longer application. Try the FAFSA first, get that out of the way, and then the profile is going to ask a lot more questions. So these schools are using the profile to determine their own institutional aid. So they're going to ask, it's their own formula, their own money, so they want to know a lot more questions. So they're going to ask about non-custodial parent and their current spouse. They're going to want to know about all the parents and what income they have. They want to know all that information. There is a fee for this one. It's not free like the FAFSA, so $25 to register and have it sent to one school, and $16 for each additional school. Now, there are fee waivers if students have free and reduced lunch, make less than $100,000, where the fee is waived. So there are situations where the fee is waived. This is also available on October 1st, so Saturday you can start filling this out. And we just recorded a couple days ago a webinar on how to fill out this form and just some good tips. So that will be on our website as well, the recording. So if you need help, definitely, watch that webinar, give us a call if you have any questions. Some colleges, instead of the profile form, they may have their own institutional application. A lot of community colleges have a small application as well. So basically what you want to do is find out all the all the colleges the students applying to, what are the deadlines, and what forms do they want you to fill out. Everybody's going to want the FAFSA. Many of the private colleges are also going to want the profile, and some may want their own application. So after you've applied, submitted your applications with the FAFSA form, the colleges and the state are going to receive the information electronically. The student, and this is going to go to the student's email, so students need to be watching out for this. You can also create a family email, for this process, so mom and dad or the parents can also see what's coming in. You'll get a student aid report via email if you filed electronically. And that's your cue. It'll come a couple days after you submit it. Basically, it shows you all the information you submitted. That's your cue that, okay, it's been submitted, it's been accepted. Now I can go, take a school or two off and add my new schools if I need to, when you get the student aid report. If you have any special circumstances, you want to report those to each of the financial aid offices that the student's applying to. So what is a special circumstance? Right now, if you're living in Florida with the hurricane and all the damage, that's a big special circumstance. A lot of damage, a lot of expense that they'd want to let their colleges know about. And we have our own weather-related emergencies up here. Obviously, COVID, the pandemic, there was a lot of special circumstances there. Maybe one parent loses their job, a death of a parent, whatever it might be, God forbid, you want to let the colleges know. Because you're filling out this information, in the fall usually. And by springtime, something could have changed. So you want to let the college know that the information I submitted, there's a different story now. And they need to know that so that they can take that into consideration. And depending on the situation, they might be able to rerun the numbers and, hopefully you might qualify for more aid if that's the situation. So verification, you may have to, I'm going to go through this in a second. Colleges may want to verify information, so I'll talk about that. So basically, they review the information and determine what you're eligible for. Some families may be selected for what's called verification. So the college is going to, on behalf of the federal government and on behalf of their office, if they want to verify something, they may ask you to submit tax transcripts, business statements, whatever they might be looking for. You want to get that into them as soon as possible because your financial aid award or offer is not complete until you've gone through this step. Now, not everybody's going to have to do this. It's just those that are selected, and there's no real rhyme or reason about who's selected and why. But you do want to make sure that you comply with those requests, make sure students reading their email, looking on the college's web portal for any requests for documents, things like that. And that's where having a family email can help everybody, stay on the same track. Okay, so the financial aid office is, great folks to work closely with. We have lots of friends in financial aid offices all over the state that are doing seminars like this one tonight for us. And they're there not to keep money from you. Their job is to try and get you as much as you're eligible for with the resources that are available, okay? So not every college is going to have 100% of the resources that every family needs. Most colleges aren't going to meet 100% of what your financial need is. But, they'll do their best with their budgets and what you're eligible for to meet what they can. So the financial aid office, you can work with them at, open house programs, tours at the college. Go on their website. There's a load of information on there. They basically put most colleges put a lot of information on there so that you can find what you need. But the criteria for their institutional aid would be on there, renewal criteria. If you have private scholarships, a lot of them, that may impact your financial aid offer because you can't get more financial aid than what the cost is. So if you have a lot of scholarships, they might have to change your financial aid offer the first year. 24, 25, I'll talk about this on the next slide. There's going to be changes to the FAFSA, so that might impact families in some way, shape, or form. In most colleges, I'll talk about on the next slide, the changes that are coming to the FAFSA next year. A lot of colleges don't know what their policy is going to be yet, so they might not be able to answer your questions, but it's worth asking. They'll have that ironed out over the next year. Again, special situations, you want to talk to financial aid. If you want to appeal your financial aid offer because you think that something wasn't taken into consideration, you do that through the financial aid office. If it's a merit award, then you would appeal that or ask for merit money through the admissions office. But typically, you'll know if you get merit money from the school in the admissions letter when you're accepted. And if it doesn't offer you merit funds, then typically they're not going to give you merit-based aid for that year, okay? And then, chat, a lot of schools do Zoom now, so it's very easy to get in touch with them. So next year, for those who are seniors, it's going to be a shorter form, a little bit simpler, I'm going to talk about expected family contribution. That term is going away next year. It's going to be really more of a student aid index. And then divorce separated parents, it's just going to be based on which parent provides more of the financial support, not who the student lives with. The number of students in college isn't going to be asked, but there's going to be a lot of changes that will help more families become eligible for more need-based aid. So that's the purpose of these changes. And so resources like 529 plans from grandparents, that's not going to have to be reported. So there's a lot of changes coming to make it simpler for families and to also help families qualify for more financial aid. So that's really what's going on with all these changes. So I'm not going to get too deep into the weeds because you got to fill out your first financial aid form this year, but next year, you know, we'll get more into it. Okay, so let's talk about how colleges determine your financial aid. So the first thing they're going to do is take the cost of attendance. So that's going to be the sticker price, at the school. It's going to include tuition and fees, billed expenses, room and board, if the student is living on campus. It's also going to include unbilled expenses like books and supplies, transportation, personal expenses, things like that. So that's, you know, the total cost for 1 year of school. So they'll take that figure, and then they're going to deduct your family contribution, which is calculated by filling out those financial aid forms. So the expected family contribution is what the family has the ability to absorb for 1 year. It might not be what you have cash on hand, but absorbing might mean borrowing or, you know, using payment plans, savings, things like that. But the federal formula is standardized, so it treats everybody the same. And many colleges will also use their own formula to determine their own family contribution for their own funds, and then they figure out what you're eligible for. But all of this is based on the fact that it's the family's primary responsibility to pay the bill. And the colleges and the federal government, state government are going to try and, you know, support with the funds that they have to help out with that. And there is a calculator on MEFA.org, EFC calculator, but there's also, I have a slide in a minute that talks about net price calculators, where for those of you who might have, you know, younger children or you're freshman or sophomore, if you want to find out, okay, what am I going to be looking at in a few years? What's my contribution going to be? Then you can actually price that out and estimate it now with some of these calculators. So they take the cost, deduct your family contribution, and that's what you're eligible for in financial aid. And the college will, you know, look at all the different resources to try and give you what you might be eligible for based on different budgets. So if we look at a family who has a cost of attendance of $45,000, and then their family contribution is $5,000, so that always goes in first. You're always going to have to pay at least your family contribution. Usually, unfortunately, you'll probably have to pay more because most colleges can't meet 100% of your need. Then they're going to put in any grants and scholarships, the free money that you might be eligible for. So we're filling this up here. And then you'll probably see at most schools that $5,500 federal student loan in there. Then work study to help pay for those unbilled expenses. So we're filling it up here. Came pretty close to meeting this family's full financial need. But the top bar you can see, unmet need of $5,000. So they gave an award, an offer of $40,000. The family's EFC is $5,000, but they really have to come up with $10,000 for this school. And that's very common. Usually the amounts are even much bigger, but it really depends on the family and the school and all of that. So net price calculators, you can go on any college's website. Every college is required to have a net price calculator on their site where you can put in estimates of income, assets, things like that, to get an estimate of what you might be paying at that particular school. So a lot of the private colleges, they're going to have much more sophisticated calculators on their website that might even take into account merit. You can put in GPAs and test scores to see if you might qualify for merit-based aid. And this is great to, to project out just to get an idea, maybe take away some of the sticker shock early on, and to help, with planning. If you are using these calculators and you have questions about the results, I would recommend printing them out because you can't save them. The college has no idea who's using their calculator and what the results are. It's all confidential. So if you want to talk to financial aid office about your result, you do want to print it out so that they know what you filled out, so that they can help you understand it. Okay, so financial aid offers are gonna look different from school to school. So if we use this example, we have a family. Their family contribution is $5,000. School costs $45,000. Can you see it? It's really fuzzy, huh? Okay. Well, I'll read it to you. So yeah, it's kind of like the text looks a little fuzzy. It looks very, very clear on my screen. I don't know if there's anything we can do about that. Anyway, so when we have three different colleges, you really can't see it at the bottom though. College B and College C, there's unmet need at the bottom there. So College B has $7,000 in unmet need that they didn't meet for the family. College C is $15,000. So College A was able to meet 100% of their need. So all these schools cost the same. So why are the awards different? It could be that maybe colleges B and C don't have as much money to give out. It could be that colleges B and C maybe are a little bit harder to get into, so the student maybe didn't get as much merit money from those schools. It could be a lot of different things. It could be, that the student just maybe didn't qualify for merit aid and only got need-based aid. It really depends on the school. Now, I know you can't read it very well, but if you can, this slide is a lot of the same numbers, very similar, but the middle orange bar there, you can see it says parent loans, and College A is 0, College B is 10,000, College C is 29,500. So these colleges B and C, to make the offer look better, to make it look like they don't have as much unmet need, they might put in a federal Parent Plus loan in the financial aid offer to make it look like, okay, we gave you a ton of financial aid. But the problem with that is that the Plus loan is not financial aid. It's a credit-based loan. It's over 7.5%, over 4% fee. It's pretty pricey. It's more expensive than the MIFA loans, but cheaper than some of the for-profit lenders out there. It's basically up to you to figure out how you want to pay your bill. You're not required to take out that federal parent loan. And it confuses families because they see it on the financial aid offer and think, well, I have to take it, or, this is the aid that they're giving me. And it really is just a way to make that bottom line look the same. So we always, point this out because it's a big expense. And the ones that I've seen every year in the spring, I help families looking at their financial aid offers. Every year I see a couple financial aid offers where there's over $30,000 parent loans in the financial aid offer. And then if you take that out, they really don't have much financial aid from that school. So it's kind of a deceptive practice, but yeah.
You go back one slide. So what you're saying is that the expected family contribution, that's kind of across the board. All colleges are going to assume the same amount. Is that fair?
Yes, they'll assume the same amount for the federal formula. If they might have their own different formula for their own institutional aid. So the family contribution at BC might be different than BU because they have their own formula for their own institutional aid. So they'll use the federal formula to determine what you're eligible for federal and state aid, and then they'll use their own formula to determine their own institutional aid. So yeah. For a freshman, yep, that was the loan that we talked about at the beginning, that federal student loan, and that's the one that the student can take out in their own name. Or, yeah, we'll talk about some different ways to pay. But the federal student loan is going to be in every award letter. When I was talking about the parent loans, it's a different type of loan. Yeah. It's up to you how you want to pay. You might have savings, or I'll talk about payment plans, parent loans, things like that. income is the biggest driver of the financial aid formulas. The assets, they're only looking at about up to 5.6%. So it's a small percentage that they're looking at each year that would be calculated in the contribution. No, it's not added to the income. It's considered as part of the formula. Yeah, but they're not going to, the income is a separate figure from what you have in savings or a 529 plan. It's looked at differently. It's treated differently in the formula. They're treated independently. It's not added to the one or the other. Get it? Yes, that's a good way of explaining it. Yep. Much heavier weight on the income, much lower weight on the parent assets. Yeah. It's a very complicated formula, so I try to talk about it in simple terms, but it's all it depends on the school because they have their own formulas for their own aid, so it's hard to. That's why these calculators can help you determine and estimate, because it takes all of that into consideration. Yep. Right. Yes. Right. And we have it here too. It's just hard to read. It's on the bottom. No. Unmet need is on top of, it's what the school isn't covering. It's the gap between what the cost is and what you're getting in financial aid. It's on the side there in green. It's 5,000. Yeah. No, that was on a previous slide. Right. Well, the parent loans are used to cover your family, to pay for your family contribution unmet need. Well, the parent loans is a way to pay for the unmet need in the family contribution. Yeah.
Cash out. At the end of the day, the 5,000, the parent loan and the unmet need is cash that someone has to pay to the company.
Right. Right. Exactly. Yep. 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 Yeah, you got it. So let's talk about how do we pay that bill? Whether it's just your EFC and unmet need, or whatever it might be, whatever is left over after you apply the financial aid offer, that's what you have to come up with, however they figured it out, and whatever types of financial aid that you might receive. And again, it's going to depend on the school. Some of it's going to depend on merit, on what you'll get for a financial aid offer. But let's say at the end of the day, the balance due is really the figure that you need to focus in on, because your family contribution, it's a calculated number that they use to determine aid. But if the school doesn't meet your need, you're still going to have to pay whatever it is above and beyond your family contribution. So in this example, the family owes $20,000 for the year. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do when I talk to families about how are you going to pay this bill, the first thing I'm going to ask them is, what can you afford on a monthly payment? Because that's really what you want to think about. How much do I have out of pocket every month that I can afford to put towards college? You might have to tighten your budget a little bit. Going to have to rein in some spending for 4 years, but what can you afford per month? So if this family that owes $20,000 said, I can afford $2,000 a month on college, they could put, and I don't know if you can read it, but the middle light blue says parent income, so present income out of current wages. In the light blue underneath it, it says parent contribution to payment plan. And I'm going to email these slides. It'll be clearer so that you guys will have it. So a payment plan is a way that you can spread out part of what you owe or the whole balance over a period of 10 to 12 months, interest-free. It's basically a budget plan through the college. You pay a small fee of $50 to $100. It allows you to really kind of stretch it out on a monthly payment and budget out instead of having to write a check each semester or, take it out on a loan, for example. So let's say, okay, can't afford $2,000 a month. It's a little steep. So now we got to look at other ways to pay the bill. Do you have any savings? Is the student able to work over the summer and earn a little bit of money out of savings? In this example, you want to tap into that, see if family members, they may have saved, grandparents, aunts and uncles, they may have taken out 529s. I know lots of people like myself that don't have kids, but we take out 529s for nieces and nephews, things like that. Who's saved for you and are going to be able to contribute? Figure that out, because that's what you want to tap into first. So in this example, students going to contribute $1,000 out of savings. Parents, let's say they save $16,000, and they're going to divide it out over 4 years. So $4,000 a year for 4 years. So there's $5,000 off the bill. Then we have our affordable monthly payment. That's where this comes in. So this parent has said, I can afford $600 a month. So we're going to do $500 a month on a $5,000 payment plan, not the $20,000, but the $5,000. And then we cut our bill in half. The rest of it, we're going to have to put on a parent loan for $10,000 at $100 a month. So $500 on the payment plan, $100 on that loan. That's my $600 affordable payment. So this is a combination strategy of really figuring out, how do you want to pay your bill? What can you afford? What are the options available to you? Every single person in this room is going to have a different strategy based on your income and your savings and what you can afford. So it really is up to you to figure out how you want to pay the bill. And you can just write out a check each semester if you're able to afford that as well. It really depends on what you're going to owe. Does that make sense? Does that help? Yep. 1 year. Yep, this is all 1 year. Yes. Yep. So they saved 16. They've talked to their financial planner and said, okay, let's spread it out over 4 years, a little bit each year. Or they could use the whole $16,000 year one and borrow a little bit less. If you do have money saved in a 529, something like that, it really depends on what you've saved as far as how you want to use it. I'm not a financial planner, so I can't really give you financial advice, but I'm always of the mindset if I can avoid paying interest by using my savings up front, it's maybe you can get through years 1 or 2 and not have to borrow, but maybe junior, senior year, then it's kind of stretched. Savings has been tapped out. But hey, it's 2 years of not borrowing and not paying interest on a loan if you have the savings. It really depends on what you have and what the cost is. So yeah, this is all for 1 year of school. That's a good question. Okay, so kitchen table conversations. We want to really, a lot of families might not be comfortable talking about finances. Some might be more than others. But it's a good idea to start thinking about, if we don't have savings and it's going to be difficult, what are other options? You want to make sure that there's some options on the table, could be community college, public college, whatever it might be, that is a little bit cheaper, or maybe a less selective private college that you might get a lot more merit aid. So you want to think about those things when you're putting together the admissions list, depending on the family's finances. Also, if you have additional kids going to school later, so, you might not want to borrow, tap yourself out to the hilt in borrowing for the first kid if you have a couple more coming down the road. So you want to think about all that. Now, I know we're talking about 1 year of costs, filling out the financial aid offers, financial aid forms once a year, but you do want to think about a 4-year plan. So if you owe $20,000 year 1, you're probably going to owe about that much years 2, 3, and 4. So you really want to project out, okay, it's not just going to cost me $20,000, it's really going to cost us $80,000 to go to this college. Even though you're doing it 1 year at a time, it's an annual process, okay? So definitely think that out. If you are looking at borrowing, and like I'll use the MEFA loan, for example, parent or credit-worthy cosigner and student are on the loan. So who's going to pay that loan back? Is student expected to do it on top of their federal student loans? If so, will they be afford to based on what they're going to be doing for a career? If they're going into, high-paying career, then it might not be a big deal for them to help out mom and dad with the parent loans. But it really, it's something that you want to know up front and kind of have a general plan and make sure everybody knows what's expected before you sign on the dotted line and make that deposit at the college. If the student's going on to graduate school, that's another thing to consider. If you want to go to pharmacy school or be a doctor, dentist, whatever it might be, that might be a lot of borrowing and that's going to be in the student's name. So are they going to be able to take on parent loans too? Credit is very important when it comes time to borrowing above and beyond that federal direct student loan, whether it's a MEFA loan or a loan through another lender. We're looking at good credit. You have to have decent credit to get approved. So that's something to keep in mind. And then once you get all your financial aid offers in hand, usually in the spring, we'll have, if you sign up for those emails, we have some great services in the spring, paying the college bill, where we have calculators and great tools where you can put in all your financial aid offers and really compare them side by side. You can set up one-on-one appointments with us. We can meet with you on a Zoom call, email the award offers, and then I can plug it into the calculator and we figure out, okay, here's the 3 that you've narrowed it down to. Here's what it's going to cost at each school. If you're looking at borrowing, we can play around with the calculators together and just at least so you know what your options are and you have a strategy for each school that the student is still interested in. Couple other cost savings options here. The websites, you'll get the email with this presentation. Mass transfer, it allows students to go to community college, good grades, be able to transfer all their credits and get a break on tuition. So there's ways to, if families can't afford, the regular typical 4-year experience, commuting to college, things like that can help shave money off the bill, and the student still gets that same degree, but you might be just taking a different route to get there. Tuition Break offers tuition break on at public colleges in the region for majors that aren't offered in your state at a public college. So pharmacy is a good example. There's no public colleges in Massachusetts that offer pharmacy. So that might be an option at one of the other states that participate in tuition break. So rather than paying the out-of-state tuition, you might be paying a little bit less. Maybe not as low as being an in-state resident, but you could get a break there. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up now with just some free resources, but does anybody have any questions before we wrap it up? And then we'll do Q&A at the end too. Okay, all right, good. Okay, so few things, resources that we have coming up. Again, if you sign up for the emails, we'll make sure you're aware of these. FAFSA Day, we'll have a bunch of those where you can get assistance filling out the FAFSA. If you need help in person, there's educational opportunity centers around the state. This is a great little, checklist. So this is for senior year. So spring, summer, junior year, we've already gone through that. But right now as a senior, maybe taking the SAT again, getting all those admissions pieces of the application in order, making sure you know what are those deadlines for those financial aid applications, making sure we're submitting all those forms online. Winter, senior year, usually January, February is when you're going to be applying for local scholarships in the local community. And then in the springtime, once you know where the student's been accepted, then you have real numbers to deal with. It's not hypothetical. You know where the student's gotten in. You have your 4 or 5, maybe more choices that you've narrowed it down to. And then you can start plugging in those numbers in a spreadsheet. We have a college cost calculator that works really well. And just figure out a strategy. Okay, where do you really want to go and what's it going to cost at, these last couple of schools that are on the list. And then go to the open house programs, accepted student days. Get a last look at the school in the spring to make that decision. Talk to financial aid. If you didn't get enough aid and it's going to be really tight to pull it off, tell the financial aid office that. Who knows? They might be able to help you out a little bit more. But it's worth having those conversations with them. Okay, so what can you do now? So before Saturday, you can get your FSA ID. You can get it starting tonight, but after Saturday, you can also fill out your applications. So October 1st is that date. We have lots of other webinars coming up, blogs, all kinds of great resources on the website. I could go on and on about that. And then if you're into social media, connect with us. Our YouTube channel is where we have all the recorded webinars. So that profile webinar I mentioned, FAFSA, all of that. And then this is our phone number and our email address. Again, I'll email this to you. I'm just going to put it onto, all right, how do I do this? I want to put it onto the first slide here so that if anybody needs the QR code, you have it. Okay, can you guys see that? The QR code? Okay. All right, great. So we're open 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. You can call us or email us if you have questions as you're going through this. We get calls like that all the time. If you want to talk to somebody about creating a plan once you know where the student's been accepted, we can help with that too. You know, we really are a free resource, trusted resource, which is hard to come by these days, that can help you, you know, through this process. So that is my formal presentation. What do you guys have for me for questions? Yep. Yeah, it depends on what type of aid. So the merit-based aid, let's say you get a merit-based, student gets a merit-based scholarship from the college. Usually, typically, it's going to be come with the admissions letter, and it's going to be for 4 years. So if you get a $40,000 scholarship, it's going to say $10,000 a year for each year. And that's guaranteed, assuming certain criteria are met, like minimum GPA maybe. So that's not going to change, even if your income changes, the merit-based aid, because it's not based on finances. Now, the need-based aid, because you're applying each year, that could fluctuate. But if you think about it, even if your income rises, so is the cost. So they kind of go up together. So if there's no big changes in your finances, you should be, you know, pretty close year to year as far as financial aid. It's not guaranteed because every year is calculated, but financial need-based aid could change a little bit, depends on your finances, but merit-based aid usually doesn't. Yep. Good question. Yep. Oh, yellow. Sure. I'll go there and then there. Yes, FAFSA every year. The profile, the deadline for the school, yep. So freshman year for seniors, your deadlines are going to be much earlier because they're going to be in line with admissions, which could be as early as November 1st for early action. When the student is in college, the financial aid deadline is usually in the spring, like March or April. So you have a little bit more time. It's not as, you know, crunched. And not every college requires the profile every year. A lot of colleges, they require the profile year one, and then you only have to fill out the FAFSA every other year. So you might not even have to fill out the profile every year either. Yep. Did you have a question?
Yeah, you hinted at it in your presentation that there are potentially certain schools that, because they're not so sought after or whatever, could potentially give higher awards. Is there a resource to kind of guide the student as to what those schools are and whatnot?
No, it's really more based on selectivity of the college. So the guidance office can help the student figuring out what is going to be a good fit from an admissions standpoint. So if you think about it from admissions, you know, admissions speak, maybe the safety school, easier to get in, maybe that school, because you're kind of at the top of the tier, might be more inclined to give you more aid. But that's going to depend on each student, what their safety school is. Yeah, the mid-range school, maybe the Reach school, you might not get anything at the Reach school. It depends. Yeah, so it's really going to be more in line with the admissions criteria for each school in the student in their profile. Yep, right there in the middle. When will you hear back? Usually it's 2 or 3 days. It's not long. Yeah. Just to get that student aid report. Yeah. Now, financial aid offers from the colleges, that's going to be a different story. It depends on the college and how you apply for admissions. So if you apply early action or early decision in the fall, for example, a lot of colleges are going to give you financial aid offers soon thereafter you find out if you're accepted. Because they have your 2021 info, it's not estimated, so they can give you a real financial aid offer. If it's regular decision that you apply, usually find out in March what your financial aid offer is. Depends on how they applied, if it's early or regular decision on when they find out about the financial aid. But the national deadline is May 1st to deposit at a college, so everybody's going to find out by early April. And if you haven't heard by early April, then call the school and find out. Yeah. Good question. Yep. Did you have a question? It's the primary driver, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, there's really not a number. I mean, obviously, if you make $5 million a year, you're not going to get any need-based aid. But even families that make in the hundred thousands of dollars in income, they might still qualify for financial aid. So, for example, that family may have multiple dependents, and the college may cost $85,000. So, let's say your family contribution is calculated at $70,000, which is pretty high. You're still eligible for $15,000 at that school that costs $85,000 because you have that eligibility. So you might get financial aid. That and merit-based aid is not based on income. So so it really depends. There's not really a cutoff per se. And if you really want to dig in deep, you could try those net price calculators. But my advice is always to apply for aid, see how it works out for each school and what you might get. Unless you can write out a check and you're comfortable doing that, it's worth it to just apply and fill out the forms. Yeah, the assets, the business itself is not considered. Your income obviously is considered, but the assets. So I use my brother he's a contractor. Obviously, you can't sell his equipment to pay for college. So that's not considered, and it's less than 100 employees. So for most small family businesses, they're not going to, look at the assets of the business. Yeah. Yeah, good questions. Anybody else? What was that? I'm sorry. Oh yeah, you can apply with any income. Yep, absolutely. Yeah. The lower your income, the more eligibility you'll have. Yeah. That's how it works with the need-based aid. It's the lower your income, the higher income, the less you might be eligible for. Yeah. You're welcome. Anybody else? Okay, I think we're good. And if anybody wants to come up and chat, and I don't know if you have any last words for the group. But thank you, everybody, for coming tonight, and it's nice to see you all. Thank you. Would it be okay if I emailed you the presentation, PDFs?
Thank you, Stephanie. It's always been a great blessing to have MIFA part of our St. Mark's Church and part of all the churches here in Massachusetts. So, and thank you. We actually had quite a few families online watching, so thank you to everyone that's online also. It's a lot. I just want to speak from every year we do this. Every kid goes to college, and every parent somehow pays for college. So as much as it might be stressful, every kid and every family finds a way. And God provides in many mysterious and spiritual ways. So I just want us to kind of always take a deep breath and say, we can do this. It is a lot, okay? And I think it's, as much as I've heard it, my kids are not yet in college, but as much as we're trying to prepare, I don't know what it's going to be like when we go to college. But we know every family, doesn't matter if they just came from Egypt yesterday or if they're born and raised here, they all go to college and they all do well. So, itaminu shoy. Be comforted. Again, October 20th is the admission, and the financial one's always a tough one, but the admission's very important. Because the financial aid one, at the end of the day, you can get a loan, you can figure things out, but the admissions one, if the student's not prepared, they won't get accepted for college. So I want to make sure we encourage everyone for the admissions part of the MIFA program, October 20th, Thursday night, 7 o'clock here in the upper room. Okay? Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you. God bless. Any questions? Stephanie's she's available if anyone would like to come ask questions. Thank you.